Thank you for that introduction. Did a project where I had to estimate the VMT for the city of Oxford using StreetLight Data. And how that came about was Miami University students reached out to me and OKI back probably in March, I think it was, or February. And they were working on a project where they were trying to complete a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory for the city of Oxford. They had come across a paper that the city of Cincinnati had done 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, where they did the same thing. And they referenced that OKI had provided them with the VMT for the city of Cincinnati. And so that's where this all started. And what I had told the students initially was that typically VMT and even VMT by vehicle type is not collected, it's not typically available at the community level unless you do a special project. Typically it's at the county-wide level. You can even go onto ODOT's website and get the VMT for each of the counties. That's what I've done. But obviously the students needed something more detailed and something more at the community-wide level. And so I started racking my brain trying to think of ways to where I could calculate VMT for the city of Oxford without having to proportion it out based off of, using either population or vehicle or length of roadways within city of Oxford compared to the whole county of Butler. And then it dawned on me that StreetLight actually provides AADT, or average annual daily traffic volumes, for all roadways for 2019. And so I thought that would be a great way to collect the AADT and then convert that over. So the scope of the project was trying to really get VMT for the city of Oxford, and doing that, identify AADT volumes for every roadway within the city of Oxford. So what I did was I went on to StreetLight and then went to, created a new analysis and, selected AADT. I think it ended up being roughly 1,300 road segments or zones in the city of Oxford that I had to collect. So it was pretty time consuming to select every single roadway, but this is end up what it looks like. And so I was able to gather that data, which was then exported into Excel. And then I was able to do the next step, which was a little tougher, which was identifying, converting it to VMT and then converting it to by vehicle type. Now that's where I ended up having to do a proportionment based off of the MOVES model. We use the MOVES model here to do air quality, conformity, and to do emissions tests for the OKI region. And so I had already had a MOVES input file for vehicle type VMT. It's I don't know how many of you are familiar with the MOVES model. It's Motor Vehicle Emissions Stimulator, and it was developed by FHWA and the government, so that it's free to all organizations, and there's a lot of different input files that you put in there, and then you generate different outputs. And one of those input files is a vehicle type VMT file, which provides, as you can see on the right side of the screen, this table here. Vehicle types are actually grouped into different IDs or different groups. So passenger vehicles, or passenger cars, passenger trucks, light commercial vehicles are all grouped together, as are all different types of buses. And then same thing for short haul trucks, single unit long haul trucks and motorhomes are separate from combination short haul trucks and combination long haul trucks. And so I'd already had a VMT input file from 2018 or 2019. I can't remember off the top of my head, for Butler County. And so I then went and then I did portion it out based off of the city of Oxford. I think I used roadway length for that. So it wasn't perfect to do, but it was, at the time, there wasn't a lot of time to do it. And it made sense at the time to do it that way, to give the students at least some semblance of VMT by vehicle type. And so that table on the right is what I ended up generating for the city of Oxford. And if you look at ODOT's estimates, it's actually a little higher, but I think by using StreetLight Data, I think my estimates, at least for VMT for the city of Oxford, are pretty accurate, because I was able to get, because StreetLight had AADT estimates for every single roadway and every roadway segment in the city, which is, you don't see very often. That's pretty amazing to have. And so, yeah, so that's what I ended up doing. I know it was a pretty quick project, but it was one of the first times that I had played around on StreetLight a little bit, but it was the first project where I actually had to really utilize StreetLight Data to come up with, to complete a project. So it was nice to have StreetLight there to with the data, so that I could actually provide the students with, the data that they were looking for. So some of the lessons learned from this are, one thing that, and this is more of a conversation, because it would be interesting to hear from even StreetLight, if there's availability, if there's options to do this. The first one was, I went in and it was basically identifying, on Google Maps, or I have a shapefile of the city of Oxford city limit boundary, but I didn't know how to import that into StreetLight and then overlay it over the map that I was using to select all the different zones or roadways. So I kind of had to go from a map, I'd have StreetLight open in a window and I'd be selecting roads, and then I'd have to go to a different tab and look at Google Maps, or bring up my Arc Map or Arc Pro, which I was using at the time, and look at the boundary and see if, I was selecting roads that were outside the boundary, inside the boundary. So that's one thing that I don't know, that I was hoping somebody could provide to me. And if that isn't a feature, it'd be great if that would be a feature, because that would, make things a little quicker. Another lesson learned that is understandable as the limit is 500 zones. And I realized that after I got to like 550 zones that I had selected, and it said it was only a limit of 500. So it was one of those things where you learn pretty quick how many roads you should select, or, how many zones you want to create, or, to produce the Excel file. So, and then another option that I'm curious to know if that is an option is, when I selected all the roadways, you could see from the maps that most of these roads were bunched up together, but I did not know how to, like in Arc Pro, you can click on the map and then drag, and you can select 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 roads at once. But I wasn't able to figure out how to do that in StreetLight, if that even is an option, because that would have probably saved some time for me in the long run as well, instead of selecting each road segment individually. So that's something I'm curious to get some feedback from. To extend onto that last note is, make sure not to double count roads. And so I made that mistake once or twice where I accidentally had selected a couple of roads that I had selected in I basically had to do 500 segments as one project, export the file, and then start a new analysis, and then go in and select the next set of road segments or zones. And so I was making sure I didn't accidentally double count roadways. And so it's all about being detailed and making sure that you're not doing extra work. So I know it was a simple project, but yeah, that was the extent of my project and what I was using StreetLight for.